All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series Arcee using her Bumblebee movie design. Yeah, this has been a figure that I've been excited about for a long time now since it got revealed. I love those, first seen Bumblebee movie designs with all the Cybertronian but G1 looking Autobots. And I think the Arcee design was really good. It looked pretty G1, but then, they're able to actually give her a Cybertronian mode that doesn't require that her alt mode be like a bunch of huge shells hanging off of her, which is typically the problem that you run into with Arcee designs. But yeah, it's a nice little Cybertronian kind of speeder bike of sorts mode. I think it works pretty well. I will say that sometimes it does have some issues like tabbing the wheels together. In fact, the tabs that are supposed to hold the wheels together actually push them further apart. And I was having some issues where this pink piece was not plugging into the legs properly and it kept like forcing itself out. The last few times I transformed it, I have not had that issue. So it might have just been the case where I had something slightly misaligned and didn't realize it, because it seems to be working okay now, but something to be wary of, I guess. And then the other kind of big problem I have with this alt mode is just how visible and awkward the hands are from the top here. And from the back, it's just, I wish they could have folded away a little bit more. I wouldn't have minded it if the forearms were a little bit more hollowed out so the hands could just fold in all the way, but whatever. One way that you can alleviate that is she comes with these two little guns here, just these two little pistols, and how you're supposed to store these in alt mode is actually just plug them into her hands, and they kind of become like little sort of exhaust pipes for the bike. And I think that works well enough. I think they stick out a little bit farther than I'd like them to, and because they're just plugged into the handholds, it's kind of hard to like align them properly. It's easy to kind of bump them out of place, but I think that works well enough as a solution. If you don't like that and you don't mind seeing the hands, there's another option for storing these. If you look at these little tabs right here on these kind of back sections, this is actually where these are supposed to store in robot mode when she's not holding them, but they fit on here in this mode as well. If you want those to be, they're certainly more stable there, but it has kind of like a wider look there, and then obviously does not really cover the hands much at all. So I don't know, to each his own. I think that probably all things considered, I do prefer the way that they suggest that you do it, which is just plug it into the hands, because at least it hides the hands a little bit better. But yeah, no, it's a pretty nice alt mode, all things considered. It's nice and alien. It has a neat kind of speedy little vibe to it. It rolls relatively well, although it really doesn't look like it's rolling well, because one thing that this figure does, which is like maybe approaching the realm of cheating, but I wouldn't really say that it's cheating, is that it does have some kind of fake wheels where like the front wheels here, this section actually doesn't turn at all. It's only the middle section of the wheel, just because of how this section has to attach for it to transform. So like, this is still where the wheels end up, but when you're actually looking at it, it doesn't kind of look like the wheels are rotating even when they are. And kind of similar thing with the back wheels here, in that like you can see the kind of sculpted wheel here that implies that it's about the same size as these wheels, but this is actually just kind of a fake section, and the real wheels are just kind of these little wheels on the back here. And that bothers me maybe a little bit more, just because like in terms of cheating, it's implying that there is a whole wheel in there, whereas the way that the arms fold up, there actually couldn't fit a whole wheel in there. But I don't know, that's kind of just like a similar thing to like fake treads on Transformers, which they've been doing for a long time. So certainly not does not bother me on the same level as like fake parts in robot mode and stuff like that. But worth mentioning if that's something that bugs you. So because like when you roll Arcee, it never really looks like she's rolling, because these wheels don't visibly move and only the middle sections of these move. But whatever. But for comparisons, just for the standard one, here she is with Kingdom Sideswipe, just so you can see what she looks like with a average size Deluxe, maybe a little bit longer, but obviously a lot thinner there. It's a nice sized vehicle mode, I think. Here she is with the Thrilling 30 Arcee, the only other Arcee that I have. I passed on the Earthrise one. I think they look good together. Obviously more of like a G1 inspired design, and this one is more of a Cybertronian design. And then last but not least, here she is with Studio Series Brawn and Wheeljack, also using their Bumblebee movie designs. I didn't really want to go all in on the the Bumblebee movie studio series guys, like, I passed on the Cybertronian Bumblebee and Cliffjumper. I don't really. There's stuff about the Ratchet and Ironhide ones that I don't like. For me, I think the three of them, the trio, is good enough. I think they make for a nice little group and they look good together. But yeah, in terms of transformation, first thing, I mean, you could, I guess, just leave her pistols in her hands because they'll end up in her hands, but we'll take them out for now. First thing you want to do is take these back sections here and they tab in right here on the legs and then right here on where the arms are. So you can just untab those and then rotate them around on the ball joint. Just like that. Then we can unfold her arms at the elbow and then fold out her hands. Then this section in the back here, which clearly is going to be her robot mode chest, it just tabs in with these little tabs right here in this section. You want to fold it down like that. Then you want to take the windshield section here, unhinge it, and then untab this section from the legs, and then untab this other pink section from the top of the legs here, just like that, and bring that all up. And then this section kind of untabs from that one. You rotate the head out of this whole section here. And then what you want to do is, it's kind of on this weird little armature. You want to rotate this armature in such a way that these tabs right here tab into these spots on the back of the chest here. So you want to bring it up and rotate it down like that so you can tab that into place. And that's sort of how this back section is supposed to sit. And then you basically bring her robot mode head up and over, and then it kind of loosely tabs in place there. There's a little tab that's not super secure in the top there, but that is where that goes. And then, is this tab in? Yeah, these two little tabs that were used previously to plug into the legs now go into these, if you can see it, these little slots on the pink section here. Just like that, locks that all in place, and then you can just close the windshield back up and then bring these sections onto the back to kind of be her, sort of classic looking backpack. Then we just rotate her around at the waist. And then if you wanted to, since I guess notionally it's a little bit up in the air whether or not this is supposed to be the same continuity as the Michael Bay movies. But, in the Michael Bay movies, Arcee, she kind of rolled around on two wheels. And you can kind of do that if you want. I mean, there's no way for it to stand up, obviously. But, if you wanted to imply that those were the same design that just changed when she scanned in alt mode, then you could do that. But what you're supposed to do, obviously, is just untab the legs here. And again, these don't really tab in all that securely. Then you want to bring this section down with the wheel, and it's on a little slider. So you just pull it out like that and then rotate it around so that you're rotating the foot out. And then there's that little tab. This little tab went into here in this orientation, and when you rotate it around, it's going to sit in this little slot here. So you just want to squeeze the foot back into that section there, and then you can bring it down at the heel. And then at first I was really confused why this joint existed, because you kind of have to untab her leg there, and I'm like, well, why would you? This looks better, right? But then I realized, okay, yeah, her feet actually don't sit flat in that orientation. They sit this weird angle forward. So you do have to untab that section. It doesn't really have a new place to lock in. It kind of just sits there. Luckily, the joint is tight enough. You can kind of in alt mode, it has these two little pegs on the inside of it that peg into these holes on either side. And I think the best orientation is just kind of bring that up so that those rest against the leg rather than tab in. And I think that's the best orientation, but I do kind of wish that tabbed in a little more securely. But yeah, we just do the same on both sides here. Tab that back in place, and then undo the leg there. And there we have Arcee in her robot mode. And yeah, I think this design looks really good. It looks really accurate to the movie design, Bumblebee movie. And what's kind of nice about this is this is a version of Arcee that actually wears her alt mode relatively well, whereas a lot of other versions of Arcee, even the good figures, do tend to just have a huge chunk of the alt mode on the back. And she's got a bit of a backpack, but it really feels more like it's just, kind of homaging that Arcee design where she's always designed to have a bit of a backpack, but it's a lot less egregious because it's actually made out of a few different parts of the vehicle mode rather than just being one huge section on the back. And, I think it works pretty well. You can obviously give her guns here, just like that. And, you know, they look okay. They're kind of small little pistols, but I think it works well enough. And if you want to store these, like I showed off in alt mode, you could just use these little tabs here, and there's two little slots on either side of the gun, so you can just plug it in like that. Unfortunately, I was kind of hoping that they would fit the other way, so you could tab them in like this, but it just, with the angle of it, it bumps into this like ball joint section, so you do have to have them hanging down like this, which you know, it's a little bit worse than it could have been, but I still think that that works pretty well for storage. It's still pretty, you know, unobtrusive, unless you're like having these like way out to the side. And then I guess the arms kind of hide them, but they are just kind of hanging out back there. In terms of articulation, her head is on a ball joint here, gets a good amount of range, and it's got a, you know, nice face sculpt there. Definitely very accurate to the movie design. Her shoulders here are on ball joints, so they can rotate around and out to the side. She's got a bicep swivel, a double jointed elbow bend here, which is kind of nice. She's only for the wrist, she only has that little inward joint, which doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. She has a waist joint for transformation. Her hips are on ball joints, so they can go forward, back, out to the side. She's got a thigh swivel up at the top here. Knees bend about 90 degrees. I guess if you know, collapse that, then it's approximating a slight more bend, but really it's just kind of, you know, angling the foot to a different orientation. And then the feet here can obviously tilt out to the side just from that transformation joint. And then just, I mean, I guess this counts. Like, they don't really go forward and back unless you're using this joint in the leg, which, you know, at a certain point tends to not look great, but I don't know. It's not like the worst look in the world. It's just a little strange. And then obviously if you want them to go back a little bit, you can just collapse that. And that looks fine, even if it looks a little, you know, inconsistent with whatever the other leg is doing. And then, you know, these sections are on ball joints, and they're also on swivels for some reason that I don't totally understand, because like really when you rotate them into position in alt mode, you're just using the ball joint, not the swivels, but you know, they're there. Maybe just so they could be two different colors. I don't know. But yeah, no, pretty good articulation, all things considered. In terms of comparisons, here she is again with Kingdom Sideswipe, just for that standard size comparison. So maybe a little bit smaller than average size Deluxe, which is pretty typical of these Bumblebee movie designs. Here she is again with the Thrilling 30 Arcee, and then I didn't really feel like transforming her, but if you need to know what she looks like with Earthrise Arcee, here she is with the Paradron Medic there, who doesn't even really stand up that well in robot mode. But that's what they look like together. And then last but not least, here she is again with Wheeljack and Brawn. And I think that's a really nice looking trio there of Cybertronian Autobots. I prefer to put the three of them together on the shelf for display. But yeah, you know, not much else to say about this figure. I think that the alt mode is pretty good overall. It has a few spots where I wish it kind of more securely tabbed into place, and the wheels thing kind of bugs me in concept, but not a whole lot. And then the robot mode I think looks really good. It's got pretty decent articulation. It's definitely accurate to that movie design, which, you know, really the design itself is just a really cool Transformers design, and pretty much how I feel like the live action movie designs should be, where it's like, okay, they've got a little bit more detail and they're a little bit more complicated, but overall they definitely look like the overall silhouette of the original characters, which I think is important for an adaptation. But yeah, not much else to say about this figure. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Arcee.